So synthetic division, and I think you'll see quickly why I'm teaching you another way to divide. It only works sometimes, but it's the sometimes that we're going to use a whole lot. So it's a lot quicker than long division, all right? Now the key is you can only use it when you divide by.
Wait, do you have to use it to use level 1?
Everybody always asks that. You can use long division.
You're not going to want to.
You won't want to. And when you see how easy this is, it is a shortcut.
It's the same thing as like chemistry, how you can do the...
Yeah, you can do the long. I was
you
just thinking about that. Yeah. You can use the atomic, like, you can use the noble gases.
That's not a hashtag. You can only do this when you divide by x plus a number or x minus a number. Okay? There can be no exponents or coefficients on the x. Okay?
So if it was like 6s plus 9, you could do this?
No, because there's a 6 on the x. Only if it's like...
Oh, like there can even be a number. Like number 3?
Like number 3, 4, and 5 on your homework. Okay? 3, 4, and 5. Number 3 divided by x minus 4. Number 4 divided by x minus 5. Number 5 divided by x minus 1.
Okay, so you can have it like a
coefficient. No coefficient, no exponent on the x. Huh? No, you won't have just a number. Just a number. Okay. In fact, let's use number 5. X to the 5th. This is number 5 from your homework. Plus... Oh, that was a 3, not a 5. That's a 3. X, yeah.
On the first equation, whatever you read, was it a negative x plus?
No, just positive. Both of them have to be positive. Yeah. Plus 3x squared plus 3x plus 2. Is that right? Divided by x minus 1. This one I can use synthetic because I've got x plus or minus a number, right? There's no coefficients, there are no exponents. So here's what I do. I take this number, but I change the sign. Okay? So I'm talking about 1, positive 1. That goes on the outside. Then you're going to do an upside down division sign, leaving enough room for 2 rows of numbers. It's not hard, I promise. Just wait. All right, this number goes on the outside, but the sign is changed.
Why is it an upside down division?
It's the L.
It's just the sign.
So why don't you just do the
Just convenient numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm going to set this up for 2 rows of numbers. The first row of numbers here are going to be my coefficients of this polynomial. Okay? But you have to remember placeholders. Remember... So tell me what you think the first row of numbers is going to be.
1 plus 3 plus 3 plus 2.
1, no plus or minus, just the coefficients. 1, 3, 3, 2.
Wait, why do you have to put it in that specific order?
Yep, has to be the same order. And if you need a placeholder, you got to put it in there too.
Wait, how'd you get it in that order?
1, 3, 3,
okay.
2.
Got it.
Okay? Now, here's the math part. Here's where we start dividing. Drop down the first one. Take the number outside, multiply. What's 1 times 1? Write it here, but add this column. Everybody always says this when I show you the first one, and then after we do a couple, they go, oh
And
my
then
God.
so it'd be
So what is that?
And then you add
4.
4 on the next one.
Now you start the
7,
process
and then
again.
7.
1 times 4 is 4. and you add 7. And you multiply, and you add.
I feel like it's only going to be easy when there's a 1 on the last.
No, it's not. It's always
Really?
easy.
Wait, what did
It's
you
always
multiply?
easy. You're always multiplying by the number on the outside.
I can see those numbers get pretty big.
And so
Yeah, they could.
So
But
it'd be 1x cubed. 4.
look at your answer. Look at your answer for number 5 from your homework. What was the answer you got when you did long division?
1x cubed. That.
No, you didn't get 1x cubed. What was your remainder? Now look at what we got. Do you see the correlation? Start from the right. This is going to be your remainder, your constant, your x squared. If I had more columns, I would continue going up. X to the third, x to the fourth. So the answer is 1x squared plus 4x plus 7 plus remainder goes over what I divided by.
So is your remainder ever going to be like, oh, is that why it has to be x plus a number or whatever? Because that way to keep your remainder not being like.
Can we try?
125.
It just only works when it's x plus a number.
Yeah, that.
Let's do another one. Let's do,
Let me try
we'll
to
do number
let me try
4
to do
from
it.
your homework.
Let me try to do it.
Can we try to do it?
These mathematicians are all talking their
Actually,
walk.
say that
They
again.
really cared. They're like,
Can I try to do this one on the board?
Let's do one without a 1. Let's do x to the third plus 4x squared minus x minus 1 divided by x plus 3. Let's do this one together and then I'll give you one we can do because they're quick. What goes on the outside? Negative 3. Inside, the coefficients are 1, 4.
Negative 1, negative
Drop it,
1.
multiply,
Negative
and add.
3, 1.
Yes.
And then it'd be negative 3, then negative 4,
And add,
and then 12.
multiply.
So the final, and then remainder's 11.
Remainder's 11. So this is remainder constant x squared. So you have to be able to interpret your answer when you do this.
1x squared
X squared
plus x minus 4. I was about to say 4.
Miss Mickey,
Alright,
what do you
me
do when it's like x plus another plus? Does that not work? Like,
Wait, that's right.
like, look, what's the question?
I forgot to hit record. Here's the answer to the problem that we just put up here. Pause it if you need to copy it. What happens if I, let me get one that works, had, let's say, 3x to the third minus 4x squared minus 28x minus 16 divided by x plus 2. Divide that out real quick synthetically and tell me why this one's different than the ones that we have done. About time.
Why don't you just throw it in the trash can up beside you?
Have you gotten it? Do you see what's different? No?
Just the negative on the outside?
Zero?
Oh, there's
You get a zero?
No remainder. We got
Yeah,
a
you got a
0
zero.
on the end. Okay? That's sneaky.
How?
So when I divide this, do you have to get a remainder every time? No. Things can go in an even number of times, right?
3x squared minus 10x minus
How do you write
Now.
it though?
That's range.
Wait a second, Miss McGee, can you just like attack this whole problem and just like go into each number and be like X how many times? I mean like 2 how many times?
No.
So if you don't get a remainder, you don't have to rewrite that little.
Okay, no, but we're going to use this to do something else. I want you to think with me for just a minute, okay? Save a little space right here, but let me sidetrack for 1 minute. If I had 6 divided by 3, what does that give you? 2. Tell me something you could say about 2 and 3 in relation to the 6. They multiply to give you 6. What else can you say about them individually?
They're multiples of 6.
And they're factors.
They're factors of 6, right? Isn't that what a factor means? A factor is something that goes in evenly with no remainder. And then y'all also said that you could say that 3 times 2 is the same. You can multiply those two factors together.
Wait, so basically if there's no remainder, we're factoring it?
Exactly. Okay, so back to apply the same thing to what I just showed you with no remainder, would you then agree this is what I divided it by? Let me get color that's going to show up.
Wait, so
This is what I divided it by, and this is what I got. And since there's no remainder, this is a factor, and this is a factor. Is there going to be any what?
Are there going to be any on the test that say like factor this and you have to do that?
Yes.
So wait, what about the quiz? The quiz
Yes.
that multiply.
Okay,
So quiz, if it says factor 3x.
I'll show you how it's going to be set up. I'll show you how it's going to be set up.
Then you just.
All right, so this, I could rewrite 3x to the third minus 4x squared minus 28x minus 16 as x plus 2 times 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. Do we all agree?
Yes.
Now it's in factored form, but it's not factored completely. Why is it not factored completely? It's quadratic form here, so now I could put that in the box and factor it further. Okay, so opposite signs. What multiplies to negative 24 but adds to negative 10? 1 positive, 1 negative. 1 positive, 1 negative.
12 and 2.
Which one's negative?
Negative 12.
Negative 12,
Positive 2.
positive 2. 3x. Do I just move what?
You just leave the X plus 2.
Yes, that's still part of it. X plus 2. Now I've got 3x plus 2, x minus 4. So this, factored completely, is this.
And you can get that by doing the old-fashioned way, right?
What old-fashioned way?
Like the one with the division way.
Yeah, but it would it'd take you forever because we're gonna get to some tomorrow that we're not given the factor. We have to start guessing and checking and finding, and the only way to guess and check is to divide and see which ones work.
So we got this one.
Okay, so let me show you how this is going to be set up. Okay, remember when we divide. Remember I told you 3 things. This is number 2. I got one more after this. Okay, so stay with me. It will say if f of x equals, let's say,
Plus 19x plus 30.
what?
We're just reading out the book.
Oh, it's one of the ones from the book. Okay. If f of x is this, and x minus 4 is a factor. So I'm telling you that's a factor. Okay. That is a factor. Tell me what it means to be a factor.
It can go into it.
Goes into it evenly. Okay. It multiplies with something else to give you that original polynomial.
If it's a remainder, it doesn't
Wait, so that's a
have to
factor.
If you get a remainder, you've done it wrong.
So
Something's
that's
wrong.
a factor of the other column.
Yes. So that's given to you. And then I will say, now, given that information, factor f of x completely. Okay? So your first step is going to be to do what? Synthetic division. Divide it.
Or normal divide.
Or normal divide, but you're going to be there all day. Outside is 4. Inside is 1, -1. Watch any placeholders you need. Drop it, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply. How do I know I did it right?
No remainder.
No remainder. If I divide by a factor, I better not get a remainder because that's the definition of a factor. Okay? So now, write it as a multiplication problem. What do I mean by that?
Like the little parentheses.
Take what you divided by, x minus 4,
And then put in another parentheses.
and write what you got when you divided. X squared plus 3x minus 10. Yeah.
When are we gonna know
Yes.
the factor by dividing and the factor by
If
doing all
you're
the other stuff?
if you're given a factor, if it just says divide, you can divide any way you want to. If you're given a factor, then and you're asked to factor completely, you have to divide and put it together.
Will they ever give us one like this where we can't do this little trick?
If this is one that's asking you to factor completely this way, they're all in the form where you can use synthetic division.
okay.
Yeah. All right. So Ty said, do we have to box it? Yes, we're going to factor completely, which means look at the pieces that are left and can I factor them? X squared negative 10. What multiplies to negative 10 but adds to positive 3? Opposite signs.
Probably 5 and 2.
5 and negative 2.
Wait, so do you just set it up in the blue parentheses like number of x, then like C?
I took what I divided by here and then what I got here. That's the second set of pieces.
I know, but like, how do you put it with the x? You just like put them in the same order that I wrote.
Yes, yes. All right, x, negative 2, x, and 5. So the x minus 4 is in the front.
Does it have to be the front?
No, it doesn't have to be. Is that factor completely?
Yes.
Yes or no? Tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take it one step further and I'll be done. If I asked you to find the zeros of this function, what would the zeros be? 4, 2, and negative 5. Because the zeros are when we set the equation equal to 0 and we solve. And whenever I set x minus 4 equal to 0, I add 4. I get the opposite sign is what I'm wanting you to see here, right? So look at the relationship between what I divided by, the factor, and the 0. What's the relationship? That's opposite sign, yes? But it's the same sign as the 0. Do you agree? So what if I gave you, what if I said f of x equals x to the third minus 2x squared minus 23x plus 60, and I said this time I'm not going to give you a factor, I'm going to tell you that x equals 3 is a 0. What do you know?
It's one of your answers.
It's one of your answers, and if it's one of your answers, it's also a part of one of your what? Starts with an F. Factors, right?
So would that be what you put?
So tell me a factor. If you know that 3 is a 0, what do you know is a factor?
Negative.
X minus 3 must be a factor. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
If 3 is a 0, then x minus 3 has to be one of the factors. So what they're going to do is they're going to give you this, and then they're going to say, now find all the other zeros. So to find all the other zeros, you have to know if 3 is a 0, x minus 3 is a factor. If x minus 3 is a factor, then you have to factor completely and set each piece to 0 at the end. So it's the same steps, you just have to interpret this part. Does that make sense?
So
All right.
if it gives you x equals 3 is 0, then it's x. Is it minus 3 because it's opposite sign?
No, it's going to be same. It's the same sign as the 0, opposite sign of the factor. So given a 0, find the other zeros. What you will do, the first thing you will do is divide by x minus whatever that 0 is, okay?
Is this going to be on the quiz right?
All right, so
That's the sign.
the sign doesn't change with the zeros, it only changes with the factors, okay? So outside, I'm going to have a what? A 3, same sign. Ooh, that's ugly. So 3, what goes on the inside?
1,
1, negative 2,
negative 23,
60, okay? Drop it. Yeah. So you change it into the factor, but because it was a 0, it's already been like set equal to 0 and solved. So it's opposite on the factor, same on the 0. All right, multiply and add, multiply and add, multiply and add. How do I know I did that correctly? I got a 0 for my remainder. Yes.
So if it was x plus 3, you put negative in it?
Correct. So if they give you the factor, you change the sign. If they give you the 0, you keep the same sign. Factor, opposite, 0,
Alright,
same.
so factors what you normally do.
Right, that's why I wrote it as a factor here, so you would see.
Okay.
X minus a 0 is a factor, always. All right, now I'm going to pick up the same steps that I was doing before. I'm going to write it as a multiplication problem. So I divided by x minus 3. And now I have x squared plus x minus 20. Box. Absolutely. So I'm going to factor completely. Again, these steps are just repeating from what I did before. Factor completely. Am I going too fast? Okay, I'll write it as a multiplication problem, or let's factor it. Opposite signs, 1 plus 1 minus multiplies to negative 20, adds to positive 1. Negative 4 and 5. X and negative 4 and x and 5. Now, I've done everything that I did before. My question is, what's different now? What did they ask me to do in the beginning? Find all the zeros. So if I'm factored completely, how can I find all the zeros? Change the signs. I would actually, it's really just set each to 0 and solve. So here, x would be 3, 4, and negative 5. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
I'm going to do a little recap. Your homework will consist of 3 parts. The first section will be just synthetic division, okay? You can get remainders there. That's okay, all right? So don't think you're doing it wrong because you start getting remainders in the first set. Now, the second and third sets, you better not get remainders. So the second set, they will ask you to factor completely given a factor. This one is where you change the sign when you divide.
Like normal.
Change the sign when dividing. Yep. The last set will be find all zeros given a 0. this one, you keep the same sign when you divide.
And that's.
Okay? Because x minus a 0 is a factor. That's those factor and remainder theorems. When you divide by a factor, you get a 0 remainder, and x minus a 0 is a factor. Those are the two theorems there.
That's the first one and the second one, right? And the last one.
Yeah, this is the, so there's 3 sections. The first one is just synthetic division. This is the second section, and this is the third section. Tell me what you think. Did it blow your mind today?
Nah, that's not hard.
It's not hard, it's just a lot. It's a lot. It's really interpreting, taking what you know and kind of working it different ways.